Hi, I'm Michael Embry, and welcome to the first of 4 programs we plan to have on the 31st Kentucky Book Fair. Now, if you haven't marked your calendars yet, the Kentucky Book Fair will be held November 9th and November 10th at the Frankfort Convention Center. Now, the first day, November 9th, is basically a Children's Day, and we have more than 40 authors planning to attend that event and present programs, speak to students. The hours for that are 9 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. So it should be a great day. Last year we had our first one, and it went over very well with the teachers and students. Now the second day, November the 10th, is really our main Kentucky Book Fair, and we'll have nearly 200 authors there. National authors, regional authors, state authors, covering all kinds of subjects. You know, there's nonfiction, there's fiction, anything you want. And as we all know, the Kentucky Book Fair is an excellent time to meet these authors and talk to them and discuss various and sundry ideas with them. And it's also a great time to buy Christmas presents. So it's you can find your favorite book, meet your favorite author, get them to sign the book, put it away and give it as a gift for Christmas. Today we have 3 Kentucky authors with us, and I'd like to welcome Glenn Davis, Phyllis Rogers, and Steve Flairty. And start with you first, Glenn. Tell us a little about yourself.
Well, I'm a resident of Frankfort. I've been here for 12 years. Prior to that, I lived in New York. Although most of my adult life I was away serving in the U.S. Navy. Mm-hmm. I'm a retired Navy chief, veteran of Vietnam, and had a second career in security management, and I also worked in New York as a private investigator and a bounty hunter. So I have a background as a fugitive hunter. So I have a little bit in common with the characters I wrote about, except my experience is modern day, of course. Mm-hmm. The characters I wrote about were from the 19th century.
Well, to get back on a bounty hunter, I mean, it's just, I think we've all seen Bounty Hunter, the TV program or whatever.
Right.
Was your life anything similar to what we see?
No, actually, the term that they like to use today instead of bounty hunter is bail enforcement agent. And I would say the work is probably 95% boredom and 5% terror. Uh-huh. Most of the time you're driving around bad neighborhoods, drinking cold coffee and talking to stupid people. But that's pretty much the life of a bounty hunter. But I was pretty good at it, pretty successful, but I got to a point in time in my life, I became conscious of my age, mm-hmm. especially when I first became a grandfather, and I said, well, I think it's time for me to stop knocking down doors and dragging fugitives out of their beds off to the jail. It was a little too dangerous. So
you decided to become an author then?
Well, I retired. I was a district area manager for a local security firm, and retired a couple of years back, and I decided to start writing, which has always been a passion of mine, and I've always been very interested in frontier law enforcement, so I chose to write a book about those characters.
Were you a big Western fan?
Yes, as a young boy, of course I know now I'm going to date myself, but I was a big fan of Gunsmoke, James Arness, and Amanda Blake, and there was Have Gun Will Travel with Richard Boone. Uh-huh. I think in the late 50s, early 60s, most of the programs on television, the popular ones, were the Westerns. Mm-hmm. And that's where I first became very interested in it. And of course, there was Wyatt Earp was a television program. Bat Masterson was another one. Gene Barry played Bat Masterson. As I got older and got more into the research of it, I found out that the characters were a little bit different than what was shown on television. It was, and I found some very interesting information, I think, on them.
Now, I'm not sure if we've mentioned the title of your book, but what is Keeping the Peace, Tales from the Old West.
Right.
And you have any tidbits you could give us about, I mean, just some things we didn't know about some of these legendary lawmen?
Well, I found Wyatt Earp, for example. I found out that throughout his life he was was a person who did not know fear. He feared no one. And he, even as an elderly gentleman living a quiet retirement in Vidal, California with his wife Josephine, he was in his, I think, mid-70s at the time, and there was an armed robbery in progress in Vidal, California, and there was only one lawman in the town, and any backup was miles and miles away. So Wyatt Earp got a knock on the door from the local constable asking him for his help. So he got out of his rocking chair and he intervened in this armed robbery, and that's part of the book, the story about how he handled that, and it was just amazing. He went face to face with an armed robbery in progress, and he himself was unarmed. He had no authority as a peace officer. He was retired, and he was able to, with announcing who he was and the perpetrator recognizing him, surrendered his gun to him immediately.
I guess he was somewhat in awe of
yes,
this legendary man.
Yes, sir. Yep.
And but do you? You've written this book, and I guess you say it took a while to write it, maybe?
There was a lot of research that went into it, yes. Of course, I worked on it on a part-time basis, but I spent about, I think about a year doing research for it. And another character that's very well known is Bat Masterson. And most people know that he carried a cane and he had a limp when he walked, and very few know about how that came to happen to him. And in the book, I wrote a story about the incident where he was wounded and left with his lifelong limp, and it was his only one-on-one gunfight in his life. And a lot of people may believe that Bat Masterson saw many gun battles in his career, but he only went in one where he was, one-on-one. And it was a fight over a saloon girl named Molly Brennan in Sweetwater, Texas. The person that shot Bat Masterson was an Army corporal named King, who was jealous and in a rage, and he was, of course, intoxicated on top of that, and he went after Bat Masterson and for spending time with the girl he loved. So.
Okay. Do you plan another book?
Yes, I've got another one in process now, which I hope to have published next year. It's going to be more about the, of different characters, but also I'm going into the relationships they had with wives and lovers. I think there may be some interest in that too.
Well, it might be.
Yeah.
Now I understand this, of course, this being your first book, this will be your first Kentucky Book Fair.
Very first experience. Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
I'm really excited about it. I've every step of the way getting my book published, and then seeing how well it's been doing. I found out, I always knew about the book fair. I used to go every year as a person looking to buy books, but when I had my book published, I sent a letter to the book fair folks, and they selected me to participate as an author. So I'm really excited about it. I don't know very much about what's going to occur when I get there, but I'm expecting to do well.
Well, we wish you the best.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for being here. Our next guest is Phyllis Rogers.
Hi.
Phyllis, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, first off, I'm a registered nurse, and I've been in Frankfort for about 26 or 27 years. And during that time, I was a school nurse for a while and worked in other areas of nursing, but I presently work at the university. But the book that I've written is it's about a murder, but it's also about a tangled mix of the people in that book.
Mm-hmm.
And the characters are brought together in ways that they never would have believed. If it hadn't been for this murder, they may never have known certain things about themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And when I started to write the book, it was kind of funny in that my granddaughter was always, oh, I never have any money, I never can afford anything, blah, blah, blah. You know. So I said, well, let's write a book. And just like that, and she was just all gung-ho. But she didn't. Then I said, well, okay, I'll do it myself. And I just started writing. And as a storyteller by avocation, I'm kind of used to developing the tale as I go along, if it has to be that way. And so this is what happened with this book. It became kind of a stream of consciousness, and I kept asking, what if? And so as the characters developed, if I got into into a fix where I couldn't get myself out, I would just say, what if? And start from there. And so by the end of the book, I was quite satisfied, with the way it came out and the way it ended. But one of the things that I think about this book when I reread it and look at it again is, as a school nurse, I had seen children who, for whatever reason, were from single-parent families, and they may or may not know their parentage. What happens if they find out? And what questions do these children ask themselves? What feelings do they have about what they find out? And that's brought out in the book.
So this book is really aimed toward what young adults and parents as well?
Yes. And I would like to see it used to encourage discussion between parents and their children, or in groups such as youth groups at church or whatever, things of that sort, where, when these questions come up, there's somebody that one may be in the same boat, or somebody there with some experience in helping to deal with those situations.
Now this is your first book, right?
My first novel.
Was it ever, a goal of yours to write a book, or is it just because of, with your granddaughter? Or?
I've always wanted to write. It's always been in the back of my mind. And I kept saying, well, someday when I retire,
Yeah.
Well, that wasn't happening anytime soon. So I just started writing, and there it was.
How long did it take you to write the book?
About 1.5 years.
Okay, and I guess you went through rewrites and whatever just to get it all ready.
Many. Because every time I would, I'd write in a notebook first. I hate computers. We do not get along.
Right.
And I'm married to a programmer, okay? So, it was, I'd write it down first, and then I would type it into the computer. And then, so that was 2 writes right there. But then you just keep going. I don't like this, and I'd go back and change it, or I don't like that, and I'd go back and change it. And sometimes even whole chapters would get rewritten because I didn't like, who was doing whatever was going on. So somebody else would have to do it.
Well, now that you got one book under your belt, you plan to write another book?
Yes, I've got a sequel in the works.
Do you? Okay. Have you started work on it, or is it just working it up here?
No, it's on.
You're doing the
It's
notebook
on the
and stuff.
computer. It's
on the computer.
part
already.
of it. It's as I
Okay.
write. It goes into the computer.
Now, this is, of course, this is going to be your first Kentucky Book Fair as well. Now, you excited about?
I was
there?
thrilled to death. I went thinking, I'm going to be in the same place with some of these authors that I have been buying their books for years, and I go, me? And here I sit. It was a wonderful feeling. Beautiful.
So you've been to quite a few book fairs.
Oh, I
then.
go practically every year. Half of my family has Kentucky Book Fair autographed books.
Okay. Well, you probably think they're it's pretty good Christmas presents too, don't you?
Oh, they are. They're
Okay.
wonderful.
Where are you originally from?
Virginia.
Virginia. So you,
Rockbridge County, Virginia.
okay, and you came here with your, I guess, husband or
Well, I came to go to college at Berea
Berea, okay.
and been here ever since.
Okay. So you're a Kentuckian now.
Mm-hmm. Well, no, I'm a displaced Virginian.
Oh, okay. Well, thanks, Phyllis, for being with us today. And we also have Steve Flairty. And I must offer a disclaimer here. I've edited 3 of Steve's books, and but I had nothing to do with him being on the program. It came from Connie Crow and the book fair committee. But Steve, welcome.
Thank you very much, Mike. I want to start by saying that this is this will be my 4th KBF, and I'm very, very excited about it. And I'd honestly like to say that the person most responsible for any kind of success I've had over the last several years has been because of Mike Embry and the encouragement that he gave a very mediocre kind of a writer a long time ago when he was at Kentucky Monthly. He's meant so much to me. I know he's meant a lot to just the whole history, last decade or so of Kentucky Book Fair. And so I'd just like to publicly thank you for all that you've done, Mike, and you're a pretty good writer yourself.
Well, thank you, Steve. Steve, give us a little bit about your background. I know you're teaching. And
Be glad to. I'm a person who loves Kentucky, and I will put out a disclaimer too. I was born in California, and I lived there about 2 months. My dad was in the Marine Corps and was just getting out, and came back to northern Kentucky. We used to take day trips and sometimes overnight trips when I was a kid. Dad would take us out there, and he introduced me to these special people called Kentuckians, and that's pretty much what I like to write about. And had the opportunity to teach for years, mainly as a 4th grade teacher, and that's the Kentucky year, and enjoyed sharing about Kentucky. And then had the opportunity, when I got close to retirement, I started sending some things out and got published in Kentucky Monthly and so forth. And that led to my first book, a Tim Farmer bio, and was in the 05 KBF. Did real well with that because of who I was doing it about. And as a result of that, so many people told me there are other people you ought to write about that are heroic, like Tim Farmer, who has overcome this use of losing his right arm. And so that started the Kentucky Everyday Heroes series. I've done a Kentucky's Everyday Heroes 1 and 2, and decided to take this passion I have for 4th and 5th graders around this state, who I really think need new, improved heroes and people that look like us. And so I've written Kentucky's Everyday Heroes for kids, and I would love to get this book out there in all the elementary schools in the state to start. And stories like a little skinny guy down in Harlan County who back in 1974 decided he wanted to help the people in his mountain community have better Christmases. And so he got a pickup truck, loaded it with goodies, and got him out there, and other people saw what he was doing, and they offered their pickup truck. One thing led to the other, and this past Christmas he sent out 100 pickup loads of goodies in the community, and had about 150 people involved. A little skinny guy who they call Mountain Santa, guy who makes 3-wheel bikes and just gives them away to those with disabilities. You know, a lady who grew up poor in Melvin, Kentucky, worked hard, always good with money. Today, in the last few years, has been the chief fundraiser for Christian Appalachian Project, and is able to get millions of dollars back into the Appalachian community. And so there's stories like that, Mike, that I really want to get out there. Very passionate about our young people in Kentucky, and excited about being at the KBF this year.
How do you go about selecting your heroes?
Well, I do have to go through a selection process and I probably turn down more. I mean, I have some people who nominate themselves. I have some people who give me examples of people who have overcome their in-laws, and I'm kind of careful about that and so forth. But Basically, I want to pick people from all parts of the state, and I guess my basic criteria is people who have overcome extreme personal challenges and or have given of themselves in a very, very sacrificial kind of a way. Mm-hmm. And I want people to know about it. I just want to shine light on people like that across Kentucky. And I can tell you, I would not make my own book.
Mm-hmm. Well, one thing that was interesting about your latest book, mm-hmm. For the kids.
Yes.
Is that in a sense you used 4th and 5th graders as beta readers, didn't you?
Absolutely. I can honestly say that this book was field tested out there in my main market, which would be intermediate level students. I would take stories in. I'd still do some substitute teaching. Mm-hmm. And I would take stories in and make a lesson out of it and let them kind of do some revision and so forth. And one thing that they said was, get rid of that word dilapidated, Mr. Flairty. That's not good. Use the word run down. Mm-hmm. And they said, why don't you quit using that last name all the time? That's too kind of journalistic. Mm-hmm. Why don't you just call these people by their first name? And I did that for the most part. And it's just really made it a much more inviting kind of a book.
Much more personal.
Yeah, and I'd like to mention too, this is the first time I've really had some real art in there. And
I was to mention that.
Oh,